Hey guys, what's going on? This is Andrew here today, and this is the next episode in the series that I like to call my history with gaming. In this video, we're going to be discussing PlayStation since we already discussed Xbox and Nintendo. To start off, let's talk about where it was first introduced in my life. When I was younger, I knew that the PlayStation existed in everything, but I never had a system for myself. For a long time, I didn't even know anyone that owned the PlayStation either. It wasn't until 2007 that I played the PS2 for the first time at my friend Frankie's house, and that was because the console was handed down to me, well, to him I should say, when his dad got the PS3 that year. There weren't really any big memories I can think of during that time where we played the PS2 because we mainly played outside more than anything. He was more of an outside guy, but I do remember that every once in a while we would play Lego Star Wars as I would on my GameCube with my other friends. The problem I always had with PlayStation was the button names. Since I grew up with Xbox and Nintendo, it was always A, B, X, Y, and although the buttons were reversed on Xbox and Nintendo, I was still able to remember the names pretty easily. When I jumped on a PlayStation, I would always get frustrated because I would always have to look down at the buttons to understand what was going on in the game, and it's funny because I was still doing that even when I first got my PS4, but we'll save that for later when talking about the PS4. Skip to the 5th grade, and that was the first time since 2nd grade that I had ever played on a PlayStation. This was at my friend Matt's house, aka Fat Matt TV, and we would play some of the older WWE games. Keep in mind though, the PS2 was supported for an extremely long time, and those games really weren't old at all for the time, because keep in mind, this was like 2012, I gotta say, and the PS2 still had decent support well before that, and even up to this point to an extent. That also happened to be the system that we played Guitar Hero on whenever we hung out at his house, because we also played Guitar Hero together. Like I stated in my other videos, they were big Call of Duty guys, but they also played Guitar Hero with me. Fast forward a year, and Black Ops 2 releases. My cousin and a few of my friends actually got a PS3 that year, but the only place that I actually played the PS3 was at my cousin's house. Although I had BO2 at home, my main place to play the game was at my cousin's on his PS3, and I have to say that those are probably the best memories I have of Black Ops 2 whenever the maps came out. What's ironic is at the time, maps were coming to Xbox 360 a month before they would come to PS3, so even I would be waiting an extra month to get the maps because I would only play them at his house. Whenever the new maps would come out, he would ask me and my brothers to come over to play them. Although this wasn't my first time playing a PlayStation, this is probably the first time I didn't have trouble playing one since I knew the controls of Black Ops 2 and the controller didn't give me an issue. Skip to 2013, and this is when I got my own Xbox 360. Since Guitar Hero was my main game and I was playing it a ton on that system, soon after that I wanted to get another console, being the PS2. Because the games that were exclusive to PS2, some of those games included the first Guitar Hero games on there, such as Guitar Hero 1 and GH80s. So my friend Frankie was actually nice enough to give me his old fat PS2 since he was playing on a Slim, and I bought the Guitar Hero games for it and really started enjoying them. So skip a few months, and I decided that I wanted to mod the PS2 to play custom songs. All this required for me to do was to unscrew the front panel of the disc drive and buy a slider tool and swap magic to do the swap disc trick and allow the custom ISO to be played. What I didn't realize is that I needed to use the DVD swap magic on DVDs and the CD on CDs. I ended up giving my friend the DVD swap magic since he gave me the PS2, and I kept the CD swap magic for myself. And when I saw that it wasn't working, I should say, because I was having the issue where I was trying to do DVDs and I was using the CD one, I ended up opening the PS2 to do the swap disc trick that way instead of using swap magic, and I accidentally knocked out the ribbon cable out of the console. So I didn't realize you can just slide this ribbon cable back into its spot, so I thought the cable broke the console, and I ended up tossing it, which kind of sucks, because that was my friend's PS2. So that was kind of stupid. And to make matters worse, I then got another fat PS2 the next day at an old retro game store that is long gone now. And I also got a few games for that system that were a part of my childhood from previous years. And the reason that I got them on the PS2 instead of the original Xbox is, well, my dad's original Xbox was broken, and I had no plans at the time of collecting consoles or even getting another original Xbox for that matter. So my dumbass thought it would be a good idea to do what I did to the last system, and I did the exact same thing where I accidentally knocked out the ribbon cable. So what happened? I thought the console was broken. I just went through 2 PS2s in the span of 2 days. So I was pretty pissed off at this experience. So at this point, I learned my lesson with fat PS2s. I ended up getting a Ps2 Slim for Christmas that year of 2013, and I actually ended up getting it on the same day that I got my gaming PC. So 2 big major things on Christmas that year. But what's also funny is I got it the same day my brother got his PS4. So we both got PlayStations, but he got the 4. So I ended up modding this system because basically I helped my friend mod his system and we had no problems. So at this point, he was no longer playing Guitar Hero anymore. He was no longer doing mods on the PS2s and all that stuff. So he gave me back my Swap Magic copy. So now I had it for myself and I was ready to mod another PS2. But I have really bad luck with power buttons, guys. So when modding the system, basically in a Ps2 Slim, the difference between the Fat and the Slim is the power button is on the inside of the PS2, but the power switch is something separate, so that switch presses the power button. I ended up somehow knocking out that switch from the system, and I thought the system was broken again, but this time I didn't throw it out, because I was really mad that I threw out all the other ones, because I probably could have fixed them, as I figured out I could have done that ribbon cable thing, but at this point, I was not throwing away another PS2, so I put it aside for a month. One day I finally decided to fix it up, and I put it all back together, and as it turned out, all I had to do was stick something sharp inside of the PS2 to press that physical button. So to this day, I still do that. I have to say that it is quite a happy ending for the PS2 for me. I use either a guitar pick or a pencil nowadays to turn it on. So I still use that PS2 for Guitar Hero 2 customs in my Guitar Hero setup where I have my stuff, but I actually ended up getting another PS2 Fat recently for my game room, so I had one for my Guitar Hero setup and one for my main game room. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that I have PS2s now. Hopefully I don't break one again, because that was pretty upsetting that I did that the last time. Just based on my experience with PlayStation up until this point, I just didn't see a need to have one as my main platform. I saw it basically as if you had an Xbox, you don't need a PlayStation, or if you have a PlayStation, you don't need an Xbox. Since I had a PC and Xbox 360 at this point and was planning to get an Xbox One, I just didn't feel like I needed to get a PlayStation as another console. That was up until I played my brother's PS4. To me, this was such an incredible experience, and I ended up playing his system when he wasn't around. Even at times, we would have some of the same games on PC and PS4. I would stop playing my PC just to go in his room to play that PS4. At this time, I felt like since he had one, though, I didn't need one for myself, since I was getting away with playing with his, and I gotta say, this is a major perk of being the older sibling. There's no way in hell I would have let him do this on my systems, but however, there is one thing that caused me to finally want a PlayStation for myself. E3 2015 comes around, and I had just gotten my Xbox One. It wasn't gifted to me yet, but my mom told me that she was going to get it by basically asking me which model to get. I'm sitting back, and I decide to watch the PlayStation conference, and all of a sudden, Sony announces the Black Ops 3 DLC timed exclusive deal with Activision. I remember flipping a chair because I was so mad. At this point, I had just pre-ordered the game on Xbox, and I just got my Xbox One, and this was the game that I was looking forward to the most out of anything that was coming out during that time. I can't say that this was the only reason that I got a PS4, but it definitely played a major part. Also, I had a few friends from the Xbox 360 days that switched over to PS4, not Xbox One or PC, so that gave me another reason to jump on it. On top of that, my cousin who I've been playing COD with for a few years now is a PlayStation guy, and this would finally give me the opportunity to play online with him on my own console, as well as with my brother if we felt like it. Although that never really happened with my brother, but I did play online with my cousin a few times. As time went on, I started to pay more attention to gaming news, and a lot of things in the news started surrounding Sony as exclusive games started to be announced. This started to hype me up for the system more, and eventually I gave in and got a Black Ops 3 limited edition PS4 for Christmas of 2015, which had a deal that bundled Destiny and the DLC as well. I also got Batman Arkham Knight, Star Wars Battlefront, WWE 2K16, and Need for Speed that year. Over the course of the next few months, I went through this weird phase of trying to get good at COD multiplayer, and I sort of had a FaZe Clan obsession as well as the goal of eventually joining a team like that. Obviously, nothing ever came of that, but I did enjoy the BO3 multiplayer quite a lot, and I ended up getting a prestige rank for the first time on any Call of Duty game. Other than that game, I switched from Xbox One to PS4 and Destiny as well, and I eventually started grinding that game for a few months again. I pretty much stopped right before the Rise of Iron DLC, and I never touched the game again until Destiny 2 came out recently, and I played it at my cousin's house. I also tried getting back into the game recently, but I got bored really fast. I tried that on Game Pass, and it did not go very well. One thing to note, though, is that the PS4 didn't become my main system. When it comes to my collection, a majority of my third-party games are on Xbox, while most of my PlayStation collection is full of their exclusives, or games where they have exclusive deals with other companies. The reason for this is because I had an Xbox for so long with no PlayStation, and since I got a PS4 after my Xbox One, if I were to have made the PS4 my main system, it would have left me nothing to do on the Xbox One. So I would get my third-party games on Xbox One since there wasn't that big of a downgrade in quality, and my exclusive games in certain games I got on my PS4 that were like exclusives or exclusive deals in that sense. At this point, I had fallen in love with the PS4, and it really was starting to become my favorite console of all time. I started buying some exclusive games for the system, but in July of 2016, my family was going to Italy, and I used that as an excuse to get myself a PS Vita for the trip with my first Uncharted game, Uncharted Golden Abyss. I also got Black Ops Declassified. Uncharted Golden Abyss gave me a great introduction to the Uncharted series, and by the time Christmas of 2016 hit, I got sucked into the Nathan Drake collection. After finishing those games in quite a long amount of time, I jumped straight into Uncharted 4 in 2017. Although I consider Uncharted 4 as my favorite PS4 game of all time, I have to say that my way of approaching it caused my hiatus. As stated before in my Xbox video, I felt like I needed to record everything I was doing, and Uncharted 4 was a game that I was forcing myself to record, which in turn sucked my enjoyment out of playing that game. In the end, I stopped recording the game for YouTube, and I actually beat the game in one sitting, all the way from the beginning, the day before Lost Legacy came out. Right before my hiatus started, I had just gotten my wisdom teeth out. The plan was that I was going to get my surgery and have my mom drive me to get my PS3 from Game On in Miller Place, since the owner told me that if I ever wanted one, he would only charge me $70. My mom ended up not following through with that plan, and she told me that we would go another day. I was really annoyed at this point, and I said that I would walk there myself, even with my bloody-ass mouth. Of course, she didn't believe me because of the pain I was in, and she went in the backyard with my sister, who was really young at the time and needed supervision. When my mom wasn't looking, I snuck out through my garage with my $70, and I walked to that game store since I didn't have a car yet. I bought the PS3 that day with the owner laughing at me for it, and my mom surprisingly wasn't that mad. Ironically, I didn't get my first game for the system that I didn't already own on another console though until like 2019. The last game that I got before my hiatus was COD World War II, and even then, I barely played the game, and then my brother sold it when he sold his PS4 to get an Xbox One. As covered in my last video, this hiatus started in 2017 and ended on Black Friday of 2019 when I got games such as LA Noire for the Switch, Black Ops 1 and The Last of Us for PS3, Ratchet & Clank for the PS4, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider for the Xbox One. Although I got all these games, the one game that I have to give credit for taking me out of my hiatus would have to be The Last of Us. Although it was a last-gen game, it completely blew my mind away with the story and gameplay, and that was enough to get me back into gaming in general. What was actually crazy about this is I wasn't really playing video games at all up to this point anymore, but I was so into this game that although I had my PS3 in my room, when my grandparents visited from another state and stayed in my room and I had to stay in the basement, I ended up being so sucked into The Last of Us that I brought my PS3 into my basement to finish the game. Soon after, the pandemic started, and I went into full collector mode as described in my last video. What I didn't mention that I did was I finally got my PS1, which completed my PlayStation home console collection. I still want to get other models of them, but this completed my full collection of having PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, and PS5. Well, PS5 not at the time, PS5 now, but at the time it was PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4. And surprisingly, I only got this PS1 with all the cables and a controller for $13. On top of that, the owner of Game On was nice enough to send me 9 free PS1 games to start me off. So I was really having some good luck around this time. As I just stated, I went into full collector mode, but as the pandemic went on, I started buying a ton of games because GameStop started having these crazy deals where you can just buy a ton of used games for such a low price, and I ended up buying every single PS4 exclusive that I didn't have outside of Detroit Become Human, The Last of Us Remastered, and The Last Guardian. For some reason though, the PS4 was untouched, even though I was mainly collecting a lot of those PS4 exclusives, but that's because at the time I was going through a major retro gaming phase where I wasn't playing anything current gen, since everything at the time for current gen was kind of boring at that point. But yeah, I barely played my PS4 for that time. But now let's jump into the last topic of this video. The reason this is my last part of the video is because this brings us to the present, and we're going to be talking now about the PS5. Originally, I have to say, I was going to wait out buying the PS5. I had already gotten the Xbox Series X at this point, but then one day, my friend asked me if I wanted to start hunting for the PS5 since, there were a ton of people that were trying to get it and it was really hard to get, and I eventually gave in. For a few days we looked, and then on one of the restock days, he actually secured himself one off of Sam's Club, but not me one. A day later, he figured since he was working a lot, he does DoorDash and a ton of food deliveries, and he does it all the time, so he really has a lot on his plate and doesn't always get to sit down to play video games. But he figured since he was doing that, and I wasn't, it was only fair that I got the system since I was mainly sitting around playing the games, and he decided to let me buy it off of him myself. To make sure that this order was secure, though, and nothing went wrong, he didn't want to mess with changing the shipping address, so he was still going to have it come to his house, but then ship it to me after. So I paid him $5.70. Since it was $5.50 around tax anyway, it would have cost an extra $20 for him to ship it out to me. Later on, he found out that his friend's uncle had just died, and that friend needed to buy an expensive plane ticket to go to the funeral. It turned out that his friend was looking to sell the PS5 for the ticket, so my friend asked me if I wanted to buy that one instead of the one that we just secured at Sam's Club. At this point in time, PS5s were having so many issues, and knowing that there was one that definitely worked that I could get my hands on made me in the end up getting that console instead of the one over Sam's Club. As it turned out, the Sam's Club PS5 wasn't going to be coming until January, so I think I made the right move to get this PS5 instead. At that point, I got the PS5, and right from the start, I loved the system. As of now, I'm currently playing mainly my PS4 back catalog since I finished Miles Morales quite quickly, and I also just recently pre-ordered Ratchet & Clank, which I'm very excited for, by the way. So to sum it all up, I love every big platform for what it is. I started out as an Xbox and Nintendo guy, but then found myself becoming a PlayStation lover as well. At the moment, the PS4 is my favorite console that has ever released in terms of experience that you couldn't get anywhere else for the time, and it's so funny to say that after I pretty much avoided PlayStation by thinking that it wouldn't add to the experience. I'm so glad that I got myself on this platform, and I'm so happy that I'm able to experience all the platforms all together. Thank you guys for watching this video. I will continue this series soon, and I will see you all in the next one.